I want to welcome everybody from those of you who are in our meeting today, welcome back, and those of you who have come just for the dinner tonight, welcome to the Leadership in the Nation's Interest Award. For those of you I've not met, I'm Steve Odland, the CEO of the Committee for Economic Development. We're very pleased tonight to be here and recognize one of our nation's exemplary business leaders, Tom Nelson. What we're going to do is we're going to do the award before dinner here. I would just ask you to go ahead and start on your salads, and we'll do the award. And then after dinner, we'll bring Tom back up, and we'll get a chance to spend a little bit more time with him and have a deeper chat while we're doing dessert. But what we've learned is don't stand in the way of dinner with these things. So we'll be quick on the front end, and then we'll have more fun on the back end. But the business statesmanship focus of CED has been part and parcel to who we are and what we've done for the past 74 years. It's really at the forefront of our purpose, and it's the hallmark of our award, the Leadership in the Nation's Interest Award tonight. Our view is that business statesmen and women take an expansive view of their responsibilities. As a former CEO, I know how important it is to focus on your business, your customers, your employees, your owners, but at the same time, there's a responsibility to stand up as a business leader and engage in your community and engage more broadly on public policy issues. And it was in the midst of World War II that CED was formed, when the who's who of the business community came together and in the nation's interest began the thinking that went into the Marshall Plan and the Bretton Woods Agreement and some very famous things that set our nation and our global economy back on a course to resurrect itself and succeed. Tom Nelson is a great example of a business statesman and most deserving of this award. Tom and I have known each other for a very long time, and I've just watched what he's done in a very quiet way. And I think those of us here who know Tom well know that he's dying inside, because he would be the first to say, "I'm not one of these people who deserve these awards," which is precisely the reason why we need to recognize Tom. He's very modest about what he does, but he not only leads National Gypsum with the utmost integrity and purpose, but outside the company, he's very involved in civic matters that impact community and country. Here to introduce Tom tonight is another one of our members, Dan Fulton. Dan is the former CEO of Weyerhaeuser, one of the largest owners of timberlands, and Dan's career at Weyerhaeuser spanned over 4 decades, where he served in a number of capacities, including finally CEO of the company. Dan currently serves on the board of directors of Tri-Point Homes and Saltchuk Resources, and is a senior fellow at Harvard University's Joint Center for Housing Studies. Dan, welcome, and have you come up now and present the award.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be here to help recognize Tom, and all of you at your place have a program, and there's some biographical information about Tom and what he does with his day job and also other activities. So I'm not going to take a lot of time going through that. I want to personalize this a little bit to talk about Tom, but also to talk about the CED. So I retired from Weyerhaeuser Company at the end of 2013, and at the invitation of John Spector, who's sitting at one of the head tables here. John's the CEO of the conference board. John invited me to attend some meetings of a group at the conference board called the Global Advisory Council. And so I was at a meeting last November of the Global Advisory Council in New York, and who runs into the meeting but Steve Odland. And I had known Steve during time when we both were members of the Business Roundtable, and he was the CEO of Office Depot. So it was fun to run into him, and at that meeting he announced to the group the merger that was in the process of taking place between the CED and the conference board. Following that meeting, I followed up with Steve because I was interested in learning more about the CED, and as I learned more and more about it, the first thing I did was I wanted to do a little research on my own and, beyond what Steve told me, find out what the CED does. And so one of the things I did is I went to their website, I researched it a bit, and I was looking for who the members were, and one of the first people that I ran into on this list was Tom Nelson. And quite frankly, when I saw Tom's name, that sealed the deal for me. I needed to do no more due diligence. The fact that Tom was involved, to me, was a very significant endorsement of the CED, and so, what's my connection to Tom, and why was that significant? So I first met Tom when I was the CEO of a Weyerhaeuser subsidiary called Weyerhaeuser Real Estate Company. So we were the home building operation within Weyerhaeuser. And in 2001, I joined the Policy Advisory Board of the Joint Center for Housing at Harvard. And the Joint Center for Housing at Harvard has an advisory board that's made up of senior executives and CEOs of companies across the housing industry, including builders, suppliers, manufacturers, lenders, brokers, and publishers. And at the time that I first joined in 2001, the chair of that policy advisory board was Tom Nelson. So I first got to know Tom through that introduction at the Joint Center for Housing, and I gained an appreciation for Tom because we shared common interests, especially in the area of housing and the critical role that housing plays in our economy and in our communities, and I think more particularly in the lives of families across all of America. And so that was a shared interest that we had that we've built on over time. The Joint Center for Housing plays a unique role as a nonpartisan, academic center of excellence conducting housing research, and what they do is they combine, the academic side that comes with Harvard University with the real world side of companies that are actually operating in the industry, companies such as National Gypsum, and so they do research reports, and they're a really critical source of information for policymakers. This evening, I just want to recognize Eric Belsky, who's sitting at head table here with the National Gypsum Group. Eric was the director of that organization for much of the time that I've been involved in it, and Tom has been involved in it. Eric was originally the chief economist, then he became the director, and then he was tapped late last year by Fed Chairman Janet Yellen to come to Washington, D.C. and lead their Department of Community and Consumer Affairs, which I like to think of as both consumer lending and mortgage lending, which is really critical, and I think Tom and I share incredible amount of confidence in Eric, and I think we're fortunate that he's at the Fed right now. Our paths next crossed at the Business Roundtable. So as I was CEO of Weyerhaeuser Company, Tom had been a member of the Business Roundtable for a period of time. So we reconnected there as well as through this policy advisory board for the Harvard Joint Center. And when the seriousness of the 2008 induced Great Recession really started to sink in on the business community, and in particular the members of the Business Roundtable, for the first time the Business Roundtable decided to establish a subcommittee focused on housing because of its critical importance, not just in the economy at that point in time, but what it meant to the long-term health of the U.S. economy. And I was asked to chair a housing subcommittee of that group, and one of the very first volunteers that put his hand up was Tom Nelson to join me and to work in that. And so once again, another connection with Tom that I really appreciated. I think for those of us that led organizations during the Great Recession, including many people in this room, we've got a shared experience. During that period of time, I like to use the analogy of what happened in the auto industry, which was front and center in national politics and publicity with the bailout of the auto companies. To put it in perspective, car sales dropped about 45%, peak to trough in that period of time. Housing starts dropped 75%. So for Tom, leading, major supplier of gypsum products, my own experience at Weyerhaeuser, we did live through, not the Great Recession, this was a depression for us. And, the other factor in the housing industry that was different than the auto industry was that auto prices stayed about the same, whereas products that were supplying and construction of housing dropped very, very significantly. And so we lived through this, and I think all of us that had responsibilities to lead organizations had a special calling at that time. And I would say Tom Nelson had the right stuff. He brought National Gypsum through that period. Not putting words in Tom's mouth, but I bet they're a stronger company today than they were, pre-recession because of that. And one of the things that Tom did that, didn't get any publicity was that I think in late 2008, he decided not to take a salary for his leadership in 2009 of his company. Setting an example for those people that he was relying on to pull that company through that. The other thing that he did is he maintained all of his involvement in his community affairs. So there's a long list of organizations that are listed in the program that Tom has been involved in. I just want to mention a couple here, but I know that this is a highly abbreviated list. So in addition to serving on corporate boards and organizations like the Business Roundtable, he's been heavily involved in the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, where he was the chair. He's involved in the Boy Scout Council, Mecklenburg County, organization called the Goodfellows Club, and he's a past leader of the United Way. And I think there's more and more and more where he's not only been engaged as a corporate leader, but he's been engaged in the community, in the greater Charlotte area. So, I know that Tom, has provided this leadership for National Gypsum through this period, and he brought them through in a very, very challenging environment. But it's very clear to me that he maintained all of his commitment for himself, his company, in the community. And I just feel very fortunate that during part of my career, I had the ability, to work with Tom in a number of these organizations and to see, what he's done for his company, for the industry, and for the community. So for me, I just consider this a very special honor to introduce Tom this evening, and I'd like you to join me in welcoming Tom to accept this special CED award.
Dan, Steve, thank you for this incredible honor. And I have to thank Dan in particular for those very kind words, because if you know Dan Fulton, Dan has capably led the Weyerhaeuser company through a very difficult patch as well. After his 38 years of the company, he's been a model leader. He's been incredibly engaged in the community, and he is certainly deserving of this award of leadership in the nation's interest. And so Dan reflects all those ideals, and so it's more powerful coming from you, so thank you. But when you think about awards like this, I'm reminded of the old adage of the turtle on the fence post. You don't know how the turtle got there, but you know the turtle had some help. And that's clear with Tom at National Gypsum. because while I'm here getting to accept this award, I have colleagues at National Gypsum that have been tireless workers leading our company, making sure that we're able to serve our customers. We've had supportive shareholders, we've had supportive customers, partners along the way, many of whom are here today. And even while we're here today enjoying this wonderful evening, we're in a process manufacturing business where our plants run 24 hours a day. And so I have a team of folks that are working around the clock, making sure that we're able to provide a critical building product to allow people to provide shelter where people live, work, and play. And so those people inspire me every day. There's a few other people I'd like to recognize. Certainly my wife, Anna, who's here in the front. Anna and I met in 1986. We met in an ice cream store in Cambridge, Mass. We ended up being classmates at Harvard Business School. We've been business partners and life partners along the way, and I certainly couldn't do this without her. And also, two that couldn't be here as well are my parents, Alice and Nils Nelson. They had planned to be here but couldn't be here. I had a fantastic Midwestern upbringing. I come from a Swedish family. My mother grew up in a small fishing village in northern Sweden. And so I am a first-generation American. So when you think about the debates about immigration, immigration did very well for me. It's certainly one of the reasons that I'm here. But one of the principal reasons I'm here is the work of the CED. And the thing that attracted me to the CED was this fellow right here, Steve Odland. It's not often that you come to Washington with someone that's had the executive leadership experience and public policy experience as Steve Odland, capably running major companies like AutoZone, obviously Office Depot, and then coming to a place like this to try to make a difference in another sphere. That was something that certainly caught my eye. I had seen him lead capably within the Business Roundtable, within the Business Council, within a whole host of different organizations. And I know that when Steve made this move, he did it thoughtfully and carefully. And so it caught my attention. I think it caught many of yours. But when you think about making a difference in Washington, you think about having a foundation of solid analysis, you think about reasoned solutions, and that's really what CED is all about. And you think about the issues that they're tackling, so important to any business leader or any community, whether that be on education or global competitiveness or fiscal health. It's apparent that the nonpartisan deep dives that CED makes a difference in the debate. It's certainly a leading light here in this organization and in this community. And it's so special to come from a nonpartisan standpoint within this community. But I think the merger with the Conference Board will take CED and Conference Board to another level. And again, as an example of the kind of innovative thinking that I think that all institutions have to have. And I credit both executives with embarking on that. But we'll get a chance to visit further over a fireside chat. No fire here, but I do want to just say thank you for this award. I'm honored, and I look forward to being with you a little bit later tonight. Thank you.